Welcome back to Phillips Hot Rod Garage. Alright guys, we're back for another week working on the subrail install in the 28 coupe. If you're new to the channel, we're putting curved subrails in the 28 coupe so that it fits on the 32 frame properly as it should. In the last couple of videos, we've been working on the driver's side. Got the driver's side looking really good. This week, we hope to transfer all the work that's been done on the driver's side over to the passenger side. Hopefully we can get the passenger side to fit in one video. That's the goal, that's the plan. We got a lot of work ahead of us, so let's get started. All right, so the first thing I gotta do is get the driver's side back out so I can get it over to the work table. Start transferring measurements. I wanna make sure that both sides are the same. And you might say, well, it really doesn't matter if they're exactly the same. One side can be a little further forward than the other as far as the peak of this curve, and it really won't matter. But it is going to matter, because when you go to put a floor pan in this thing and you start rolling that floor pan over this curve, if one side of that curve is further forward than the other, that floor pan is not going to want to lay down squarely in that floor the way it should. So I'm going to make sure that when I transfer measurements from one side to the other, that I get them exactly the same. I think that's the best way to go about it. All right, so I'm gonna flush them up on the end first and then see just how close they've got them as far as the length. If I have to trim them a little bit, I will. Clamp them together. All right, it's pretty good so far. I'll clamp this end together. That's really close. Really close. Really close. I think I'll put another pair of clamps here. Alright, they fit together pretty good, so they got them made exactly the same. I don't have anything to worry about on that. So what I'm going to do is just take my pattern that I originally used. Just go ahead and use it to transfer that cut over. It's exactly the same as my pattern, so I'm going to transfer it over to this one and then get started cutting. But I better check to see if these are square across the end. The other end lines up good, but this end, yeah, that would be a no. They do not line up. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so that driver side is a little bit shorter, so I gotta see what I gotta do to make that work out. Alright, so I'm gonna try to clamp this square up to the end of the subrail so I have something to measure off of. Hopefully I can make this work. Maybe I can make it work. Kind of tedious here. I think that'll work great. The end of this subrail is perfectly square, so all I have to do is measure from here up and see where my pattern starts, and then I'll start it from that point on this side, and that should get me right where I need to be. Yeah, that should work. Alright, let me get something to measure with. Alright, so we're a 1/4 inch from the square. This one, I'm going to make a line on a 1/4 inch. Alright, there's a 1/4 inch mark. That's where my pattern will start. Let me take this thing back off. I'm also going to mark the end just for reference, so I have 2 places of reference. Alright, so I'll line this end up with the line I made here and see how it lines up with this mark, and it is perfect. So I'm ready to mark out my cut line. Alright, now I got to make a mark here because I got to have a cut line right here. There you go, that's perfect. Alright, so I got to figure out where to put this line on the other side, so I think I'll use a square for that too. That should get me where I need to be. Should get me just right. Alright, let's put on a mark with a small square now. Should be just right. Alright, so it's time to get these things took apart, get started cutting. Alright, that ought to work. Alright, but I got to make one more mark before I can get started. Alright, that'll work. All right, now all I got to do is hit this with a grinder. It should look pretty good.
All right, I got it stuck up in there, and it looks pretty good back here. But when I stuck the subrail into the quarter, it kind of changed the way the quarter was shaped a little. It looks fine though. It actually fits pretty well with the shape of the cross member. But the only problem is, it looks like the cross member's got to go forward. You can see the wheel opening and the cross member don't line up. And also right here, this doesn't line up. So that looks like it's going to have to go forward some, because there's no way to move the quarter back. So the cross member's got to go forward. All right, now when measuring this side, I go from my cut line to the cross member, I'm 2 1/4 inches. Now I go over to the passenger side. Over here on the passenger side, I'm only 2 inches. So the passenger side subrail is sitting about 1/4 of an inch further forward than the driver's side, but we just established that the cross member needs to go forward right here. I can't push the quarter back any. You can see right here it needs to go forward. Alright, so really the passenger side needs to stay right where it is, and over here on the driver's side I really need to cut another 1/4 inch or so off of the old subrail to let the new subrail move forward about another 1/4 inch. If I did that, then quite possibly this will go forward 1/4 of an inch, and then when I move this forward 1/4 of an inch, these will still line up. But on the passenger side, this won't move, and this will go forward 1/4 inch. That'll make everything line up perfectly. Now there's one other thing that I can do to try to keep from having to cut some off of this side. I can come back here and go ahead and put a cut on this piece, level this out some so that it sits flat on the rear cross member, and when I do that, that may take enough material out right here to get me that 1/4 inch that I need. So I probably need to go ahead and try doing that first. That may get this to move forward 1/4 inch right here. If it does, and I cut this the same way on this side, I may only just have to move the cross member and everything else may end up working out just perfect. So I think the first thing to do would just come in here and go ahead and cut this. Lots of trial and error stuff here. A lot of trial and error. A lot of head scratching. So the question I have now is, how far forward do I make this cut across here? The further forward you go, the further this end of the subrail is going to drop down when you flatten it out. And I don't know if this can go down any, because I haven't checked to see how level it is up at the front with the old subrail. If it's pretty level now, it won't be able to drop down any. Maybe it needs to go down some. I don't know. I'm going to go up there, stick this level on there, and see what we got going on. Then I'll know about what I can do back here, if I can go up and down with it or not. Alright, so looking at that, we're really not going to be able to drop it down much at the back. The front part's almost perfectly level, so we're going to have to put our cut line as far back as possible to keep that from dropping down very much. If it drops down much, we're going to end up being out of level at the front. Alright, so the ideal thing for me is to have the bend to be about even with the cross member. So the way I'm going to go about this is I'm going to go about 3/8 of an inch forward of the cross member and put my line. I'm going to make my cut there and bend this piece up there. That way when I move the cross member forward about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, it'll end up being pretty close to even. So that's how I'm going to go about it, and hoping for the best. Hope it works out. It should. It should. That ought to work. Right there. Now, I got to get these out and get them to the work table. All right, so I got to line them up and clamp them back together. Same way I had them before. All right. All right, believe it or not, the line that I made to cut along is actually almost perfectly in line with this cut that I made right here. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit to make my cut be perfectly even with this. Now what's going to happen is when I cut across here, this whole piece is just going to come off. That'll be fine. That'll be out of my way for doing the installation, and I can come back and weld this piece in at a further forward position when it's time to do so. short one. All right, now it's time to cut them. Well, my Harbor Freight vise is not wide enough. Yeah, it'll fit like that though. Well, the way I'm throwing sparks, I can't see my line. That's a terrible thing. But I just got to keep going. Guess at it, I guess. All right, so on this side, they have got a weld right here, right in my way. I've got to try to get that weld broke loose in there somehow without totally destroying this piece. I'll try to see if I can just twist it off of there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. Spot weld was right there. Right there near the end. Now I gotta dolly that flat. All right, now I've got it to where I can accomplish my goal. That is to bend these pieces. It's not going to take much, just a little. Just try to bend them both the same, and they'll be easy to bend around on the car. So Should be good. All right, that's just right. Now I can put them back in the car, test fit them again. And I believe that is exactly what I needed to happen. I believe it is. All right, now we can check the back. All right. All right, that's 47 5/8 on both sides. Yeah. All right, so it's 47 5/8 on both sides from the cut I just made up to the cross member. So now I'm gonna go to the front of the subrail and measure from the subrail to the cross member on both sides to make sure my measurement's the same. If it's the same on both sides, then I'll be ready to start cutting off my old subrail to get this new subrail to fit down in here. All right, so 2 1/4 is what I had on the driver's side, and now I got 2 1/4 on this side too, since I trimmed the back on both sides. So now I'm ready to start cutting this off right here so I can get this down in place. Then I'll be getting pretty close on getting these put in. Let's see if we can get that part done. Okay. All right, it's time to start cutting. All right, now we got to mark it on the outside and get the outside cut. All right, so on this side, I'm gonna have to cut up into the quarter panel some. It's all right, it's all rusty. I got a patch panel, goes up pretty high anyway. So I'm just gonna cut up into the quarter a little bit. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's all gonna be cut off and replaced anyway when I do the patch panels. Oh yeah, now I got plenty of room. Well, binding up on me. What in the world? Let's try that again. All right, I think I got it figured out now. And that's the piece I was trying to get out. Okay. All right, so we got to cut through this hump in the wheel well, just like we did on the other side, so that the subrail fits up flush against the wheel well. All right, I think that's got it. All right, that's it. Passenger side's in. It looks good. Let me show you how it looks up at the front. There you go, nice and flush. Looks good all the way down. Looks good. Driver's side looks good. All right. All right, I just want to stick this piece back in, get an idea of what's going to have to be done to get it to fit. All right. All right, now you can kind of see the idea of what I'm trying to do. That piece is going to be like a filler just to make it all come together. But the first thing I got to do is get the quarter panel in the right spot, get the rear body panel moved forward like it's got to do, get the rear body panel to fit back up there. Then I'll be ready to put those pieces in. Yep, I think it's going to work out real good. All right, and as far as the way it fits up here, that level's touching all the way down the subrail right there, and it's touching the factory subrail all the way down. So I just don't see how you can get much better than that. That looks real good. All right, well, there's been a lot of figuring, measuring, head scratching, studying photos. Oh, it's been a lot of hard work, but I finally got them going my way. All right, guys, everything's coming along nicely. We're making progress. So in the next video, we're going to be working on fitting the cross members in. We're going to work on this rear body cross member to get it to fit the quarters as it should. We got to take some measurements. We may have to shoot the laser down through the car again. We got to get the rear body panel to fit up to the quarter panels and get all that to fit up to this rear body cross member before we can lock anything down permanently, and before we can put these little corner pieces back in to the subrails down in the bottom of the quarters. So there's a lot of work to do and all that, but we're going to get it. It's looking real good. But hey, while I was making the video, I took some time to make a phone call to Steadfast Manufacturing. Those are some really good people. They talked to me for a pretty good while. Just really nice folks. I was talking to you about some pieces being too short. Hold on, I'll grab them. All right, so these are the pieces I'm talking about. There's two of these, and they seem to be a little short. So I'm talking to them about giving them the measurements on these and them telling me if maybe they need to send me another set. I don't know. They also talked about sometimes they just cut them off real short and just only put just a little small piece of it in. And they told me I could do that and it would work just as good. Now, I have seen photos online of people putting these in real short. I've seen all different kinds of things done with this subrail kit. The one thing they did tell me at Steadfast is that there are no instructions, and a lot of people ask for instructions, but the way they look at it is a hot rodder can just figure it out. So it's up to the discretion of whoever's installing them to interpret the vision that the artist had when he originally made these. Because whoever made these, which happens to be Steadfast, they were the artists behind the design. So I wasn't there when they were building them. I wasn't there when they were installing them in the first car that they did. So I really don't know how they did it. So looking at pictures online, I see a whole lot of different ways people are doing it. So I'm just figuring it out as I go, and hopefully along the way it helps you guys some way or another. If some of you guys are putting these in your cars, maybe you can learn from my mistakes that I'm making. Maybe you can do yours different. But either way, you get a general idea of how these have to be put in. And for me, they're working out great. Everything's looking real good. I'm really happy with it. So Happy New Year's, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We got a lot to do in the next one. You're not going to miss it. I'll see you guys in the next one.